You waiting for some food to fall or something? Eh? What are you looking for? Luna! Hi, Pumpkin! Hi, I'm Ed, and this is my YouTube channel called Atheist, the Bird with No Cage. I always mention that now I'm 79 years old, and I don't know why I say that or anything, but one thing we've been concerned about with the videos, if you happen to be one of the few people on the planet that watch these videos, you'll notice that I have a habit of speaking rather slowly, and I'm a little bit afraid that gives the impression that I'm not intelligent enough to speak more quickly, but it's simply a habit that I've had all my life, that I like to speak slowly and clearly. Anyway, today we've been a little concerned about the speed of the videos. That my camera guy Jose Luis tells me that maybe it'd be better if we made shorter videos, given all the issues that we're talking about. So for today, here I go again already. You see, today I'm going to tell you 3 short stories. Stories of 3 friends and that died, and as far as I'm concerned, all of their deaths were caused by religion in one way or another. So here we go. The first friend, his name was Claude. He was 25 years old when I met him, and I knew that he had serious problems, psychological problems. He had claimed that he had been molested by a priest or a series of priests in the Catholic Church when he was young, and it had left him really scarred, questioning his sexual preferences. You know, he was worried that he was gay and didn't think he was gay, but and all that. But anyway, Claude had, sometime after I knew him, had, I guess, what you'd call a nervous breakdown. That he'd had these kinds of episodes before. This happened in British Columbia when I was living there, and Claude ended up in the hospital, and where we lived in British Columbia, and then went back to, he was from Kingston, Ontario, which if you're watching my videos, you know that's my hometown, where I was born and so on. Anyway, the short of it is, Claude went back to Kingston, Ontario, and he was in a psychiatric wing of a hospital in Kingston, Ontario, and he committed suicide. He apparently threw himself from a window in the top of the hospital and killed himself. And there's no doubt in my mind that that was a result of what happened to him as a youngster with said priest or priests. The second story is about a young man I met here in Mexico. I was working in an office, and he came to work in the office as a student. He was practice working, I guess you would call it. I'm not sure what they called it. He was, I didn't even know it at the time, but he was a Jehovah's Witness. He had a motorcycle. He had a motorcycle accident and put himself in the hospital. And I'm piecing a lot of stuff here together. But between he and the family, somewhere, I'm not claiming it was anybody's fault, the church's fault, but between he and his family and the church, they decided that he shouldn't receive a blood transfusion, even though the hospital was recommending that that's what he have, blood transfusion. And he died. again, I hope it was his decision if that's what happened, and it looks like it did. The third friend, so I mean that one, I clearly blame on that religion, specifically that part, the religion that tells Jehovah's adherents to not have blood transfusions. He died from that. The third story is another friend, Jorge, who is very different from the other two, but his story, his wife was very hyper-religious, and Jorge was, for one thing, henpecked. Is one of those guys that I've never understood in my life, that was totally controlled by this woman and terribly afraid of her for some reason. I have no idea why. As far as I know, she had nothing on him. But she was against his drinking. He loved to hang with the musicians. I was a musician, and Harvey was a drummer, albeit not a good one, which may have contributed to his mental state. The fact that he so wanted to be a musician and yet couldn't pull it off. Anyway, the big problem was, from the perspective of him hanging with us, is that he liked to have a beer and he liked to smoke pot. So, but he was terrified that his wife would find out. And of course, to the beer thing, I mean, he gave up the beer first because he would have one beer and he'd go home and she could smell it right away, even though he wasn't drunk or anything. So he went with the pot because he figured out that, well, you could smoke the pot and get high, and it's not necessarily recognizable that you're high the way when you're drunk, and there's nothing to smell as long as you have, take a swallow of a Coke or water or something, and there's no way that she can detect it. But so he was playing this tightrope game with her, pretending, sneaking out to be with the guys and all of that, and smoking pot, and once in a while he'd have one drink or something. Anyway, Jorge was a confused man too. Jorge would be 30-ish, and I never heard any problems about, I knew he was confused and henpecked and concerned about he wanted to be a musician so bad, but just wasn't a natural at all. Anyway, at some point or other, Jorge decided that life was not worth living, and he decided to hang himself. And he wasn't exactly successful at that. This is going to be a little in the black humor range, I guess. It's not really funny, but the guy that was pretty klutzy about a lot of things, when he decided to hang himself, he kind of messed that up a little bit too. He walked out into a area on a side road away from the town, went up on the side of this hill and tied the rope to a tree and tied the rope to his neck, and the tree was on the side of this cliff, and he jumped off the cliff to hang himself, and either the rope or the tree or both broke, and he fell and killed himself from a fall. Anyway, the point of that is, there was another guy. Now, I can't blame religion directly for that, but it sure as hell seems to be a huge part of the problem. He fretted about this thing, about whatever. I never heard his wife, what she was telling them or anything, but obviously she disapproved of anything that I think maybe being around us musicians was probably a bad influence on him. And Jorge died, a young man. And I mean, all of those three guys, none of them that I know for over a long period of time, but they all seem to be gentle, easygoing guys. And it just looks like it looks to me that in all three cases, religion played a big role in them dying. And 2 cases, suicide, and the 3rd case, the Jehovah's Witness guy, I don't know what the hell you would call that, but anyway, it's one of my specific beefs about religion. And those 3 stories are absolutely, well, as true as I can tell and recall them. I'm not making any of that up. And as I say, I don't have any definitive evidence that religion specifically was the total cause of their death, their early deaths, but it sure as hell seems like it was. Okay, that's a big beef I want to get off my mind. And I'm Ed, and this is my channel is called The Atheist, the Bird with No Cage. And thanks for watching. Bye.